All right, so here we are. The journey to the Huairasinchi finish line is complete. So this video is a little recap. How did we do? Did all of our planning and everything work out? So let's see, how about we start off with travel plans? How'd your travel plans go?
Travel plans were ideal. Getting here early, not feeling rushed, being able to tune the bike, get some training in at elevation, afterwards chance to relax, unwind, meet with teams we've met along the way. So I think the way we traveled is perfect.
Even though your bike got late 2 days, we had plenty of time to go back and get your bike from the airport.
We did.
2 days later.
Yeah.
So that's
two trips to the airport.
So big learning lesson. Don't come to a World Series international race and expect to arrive with all of your gear and then race the next day. That's not going to happen. So plan on a couple days buffer. Yeah. You like travel plans?
Yeah, I think it was great. There was plenty of time to feel like we saw the country and to get comfortable before the race even was close to starting.
I think I like, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that most of these races end up being in rural places.
Yeah.
But now with those extra added travel days, you get some sense of the urban areas of that country as well, and more of the character and the culture and those things.
Yeah, and we got exposed to the Paramo
Yes.
right away. So we were shown the environment that, some of the hardest part of the race was going to be in. So that was cool to have time to see that and experience it.
And if you're lucky enough to know some of the other teams, you're able to, like what we did, we hung out with a couple of the teams, and that way it really gave us a good feeling of not only the terrain, but also they had some experience shares on what to expect in the race. Even if it is something along the lines of you're going to suffer like dogs, at least we knew what to expect. So definitely come to the race a little early if you can, and then possibly stay a little bit later after the race just to kind of relax and enjoy yourself and enjoy the culture and everything. So let's see, what's next?
Nutrition.
Yeah, let's do nutrition. How'd you do with your nutritional plan?
So there are really two aspects to that. The first is I carried way too much food.
All
of us did. Yeah.
So much.
The other problem for me specifically was after 24 hours, had a really tough time with just carbs, and I had to figure out on the fly how to handle those stomach issues. My solution was an antacid and then some Tums, and then for a while I just had to go with protein. I could consume protein. Yeah. The other thing is when you get that feeling in your stomach that you can't take in carbs, it's the processed stuff. It's the bars and the gels, and what I was really craving is just something natural, something not so refined. Something that's just closer.
So what did you eat that worked?
So meat sticks worked really well.
Yeah.
Once I got the stomach issue under control, in the transition area, going to some real food, so some mac and cheese with some sausage in it, quick noodles, things that are really easy to prepare. From breakfast, they left us some apples and oranges, and I ate those. Those were great, fantastic. So that worked out well.
That worked out with you. How about you?
I loved the instant mashed potatoes. That was the winner of the race for me. And olives. That was really great. But yeah, just like Dirk, we just had so much food left over. Obviously, that's one of our fears, that we're going to starve. But we didn't starve, and I didn't have any stomach issues at all, really. I ate pretty constantly, it felt like. But that warm food was really great.
Yeah. I would also say be ready if you have an opportunity to go to a little store and pick up something. The empanadas in the middle of the race, those were an absolute,
gosh, totally.
Absolute, jolt of energy and fantastic.
Yep.
One thing we messed up, I forgot. We had instant coffee packets, but we did not have a cup, so we could not make the instant coffee that we were, really jonesing for. That was really dumb.
Yeah. So the cool thing is the race director here at each TA had the ability to boil water. So they had fresh water and the ability to boil water. So definitely in a cold environment like this, bring stuff that you can just add hot water to, and bring a cup or a bowl so you can actually eat out of it. But that was awesome to show up at a TA and have warm food. Mine was, I'm gluten-free, so I was a little worried I would get here and not be able to find food, but luckily Ecuador has some great grocery stores. They have gluten-free options just like in the States, so I was able to find typical bars as well as gluten-free bread and pretty much anything else I wanted. I did overstock, and I ended up buying way too much. But I would say my favorite was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I found gluten-free and actually Brian's was too. I think he loved the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So the night before the race, we made up a bunch of sandwiches, put them in little baggies, and so basically every time I hit TA, I'd take 2 or 3 in my backpack, and those are the ones I went to over the bars. The bars were they're convenient and all of that, but if I had the time, I would normally go after one of those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So that was my favorite, in addition to all the hot stuff at the TAs.
Two more comments. One, the mashed potatoes. I thought the idea was horrible, and then when you made them out in the, I wanted some. I wanted some. The other thing, my plan had been to race with frozen burritos that would thaw over time. I left them at our Airbnb, so
oops, they're still here.
Still here.
Right. Okay, so we done with the nutrition? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so what's another one? Gear, I guess. How'd your gear work out?
Gear worked out perfectly. I mean, one of the things that I do in my pack is I separate all the components out into smaller dry bags, which makes it super easy. If I know I need some warm layers, I pull out the warm layer bag. If I know I need some medicine, I pull out the medicine bag. I had all the gear I needed for the race.
Very good. How about you?
Yeah, me too. I was really happy with all my gear. I did not get as cold as I thought I would. I did not need to use the hot hands. I was afraid I didn't even have enough along with me and didn't open one of them. But the one dumb thing is we did not wear the wetsuits that we brought. We had wetsuits in the paddle bag, but we were in a total rush to get on the water before the cutoff. And it was only a 2-hour paddle, so we kind of weighed our options and decided not to use the wetsuits, and we should have. Yep. Because getting off the water, we were pretty frozen. Took us a little while to get warmed back up in, there's a little building that they had that just took us a while, so it would have been better for us to use the wetsuits.
Yes.
Other gear, my gloves held up fine. I had gloves with rain covers. I liked that quite a bit. Poles were totally a necessity,
poles were a lifesaver.
And that was great.
Did you have a helmet?
Yeah. I wore my helmet for the whole race. I never took it off once. It was required for every trek leg, and it had my headlamp on it, so I didn't carry an extra headlamp. And yeah, I don't think anyone else would recognize me without the helmet now.
Yes.
I feel like we're also pretty fortunate to get laundry service pretty quickly after the race, because your gear
it's terrible.
gets sopping wet, gets really gross and nasty very quickly.
Yep.
So have a post-race laundry plan.
Yeah, this was a very wet race, so definitely I was glad I had multiple pairs of socks. My rain jacket, same one, out dry, Columbia, I think it is, the Columbia out dry jacket. It didn't wet out, it kept us completely dry. So I was warm pretty much the whole time. Again, like she said, with the wetsuits, that was a big error on our part. But that we had the wetsuits, we just chose not to wear them because we're in a rush through the TA. Let's see, what other gear? The poles were absolutely a lifesaver. I did wear the ultras that are designed for. The ducks are coming, I guess. The ultras that are designed for the rain, snow, and mud. And I really wish I wore my regular ultras, because what it kind of did is it trapped water inside the shoe. It's also, as the shoe bends near your toes, it dug in a little bit. So I probably won't wear those again for an expedition. It wasn't that bad. It was just a nitpicky thing.
So for you guys, gear bag on the bike.
Oh, loved it. Absolutely. Yeah, the Blackburn gear bag. It's a 14-liter dry bag. We could just pull it out off our bike, put it in our backpack, trek with it. I ended up having 2 dry bags because not all of my stuff could fit, because they made us carry not only the upper and lower dry areas, we had to have thermal upper and lower, and we had to have a backup set of clothes, because they knew that at high elevation it was going to be extremely cold and wet, and so they wanted to make sure we had a backup set of clothes. So I did have 2 different dry bags, but I was able to put the majority of it in the Blackburn. Was the same with you?
Yeah, I just transferred my Blackburn bag from the bike to my backpack, so I didn't have to repack any of the stuff inside of it. It was quick and easy. Yeah. I liked it.
And we also both used feed bags on the front of the mountain bike. I liked that a lot. Everything I needed was right there. You didn't do a feed bag, right? Or
I had a food bag on the bike.
You did? Okay. Yeah. So
2,
that worked out
actually.
very well.
Yeah.
Good. Where Andrea and I messed up, we did not have. We used the Soul Escape Bivy as a sleeping bag, and we did not have a pad, and we tried to use the Bothy bag, which was a horrible disaster.
So
we
bad.
even tested it out.
So
but
bad.
It was bad. So what happens inside the bothy, as you got two human beings breathing in the middle of the night, it creates condensation in the inside of the bag. It's like being inside a trash bag. And so the inside gets completely wet. When every time it touches you, you get wet. It's only for emergencies. So don't ever use a bothy bag and expect to sleep two people for any period of time. It was terrible.
Yeah,
so,
terrible. So bad.
So that was the biggest gear error on our part, and it affected our sleep, because our sleep strategy, we actually would designate time to sleep like 3 hours. Meanwhile, we're hustling and bustling around in this stupid bothy bag, uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Dirk is on a sleeping pad in a nice down blanket or down sleeping bag, and he's snoring. I can't wake him up. Meanwhile, we had no sleep, and so that really affected our performance later in the race. So we're going to go with an inflatable skeleton?
Skeleton pad is what I
Yeah.
would recommend, and then a really small down bag.
Yep.
Yeah,
That can be crushed down really small.
It can be crushed down really small. And then I didn't bring it because it would have helped, but earplugs and a face mask. Because the best places for us to sleep, turns out, was in the TA.
Yeah.
But the TA is bright and noisy, so...
Yes, and dogs bark constantly in Latin America, just about every country we've been in. So the earplugs are huge, because they do not stop barking, and so you need some way to block that out. So, so that was the biggest gear. I don't think we had any gear fail. Our bikes held up fine. So I think all of our other gear did well, right?
Yeah, I think it was...
Brian didn't have any gear that failed, right?
Nope.
Everything was good. Okay.
I had a life straw issue that, but that was a brand new life straw that I'd used a few times before, and it sort of clogged up towards the end of the race. That was frustrating.
Right.
I don't see how to get around that. Like, maybe just carry two of them, I guess, next time.
Right. We used those Cadlin filters, and they were fine. So our water filtration worked great.
I guess it's a good tie-in because we're talking about sleep strategy.
Yeah, let's do sleep strategy. Yeah, where do we start? I guess we went into the race
we did
deficit.
not get enough, period.
Well, I think the racing rule of thumb is go at least through the first night and start thinking about sleep, 30, 36 hours later. But in our experience, I think if we had the ability, there was a place for us to sleep the first night, we should have taken advantage of that, because we didn't really see an opportunity to do it again later.
No, not dry.
And the other piece of this is, we've talked about this, and this when you are when you don't drink enough, you're thirsty. When you don't eat enough, you're hungry. But we sort of deal with tiredness as a badge of honor, and we ignore it.
Yes.
And we need to manage that a little better and realize that when you are tired, you start making really bad decisions.
Yep.
So don't put a formulaic overlay on your race and say, we will sleep here, here, and here. Really recognize, hey, here's an opportunity to sleep, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Or recognize, hey, things are starting to unwind a little bit. I don't care what the clock says, we're going to sleep now.
Right.
You wouldn't do that with drinking. You wouldn't say, hey, I'm going to drink it at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Boom.
Correct.
It's 3 o'clock and you're thirsty, you drink. So
yeah, I feel like we got in just a little bit of a risky situation, probably due to lack of sleep. So, it's dangerous enough to keep watch out for yourself and others, and on trails that you might not be used to. So the sleep, I think, I agree, it's like critical. It's just more important than we've given it credit for before, I think.
Yeah.
But maybe that's because this race we really just could not find a good place to sleep, nor a good time when you're racing the cutoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. And we started off at a deficit. The race hotel that we were in leading into the race, we went to bed early thinking we're going to get some sleep. We got to wake up at like 2 a.m. to get on the buses by 3, and then we go. And there was a funeral going on nearby, and it was really loud, and there's a dude that was singing, and so that totally kept us up. And then even when the guy quit singing, there was like 100 people murmuring around and making noise, which set the dogs off. So the dogs started barking, and we weren't using earplugs or anything like that in the hotel. So I feel like we got maybe 3 hours of sleep the night before the race when we could have had 6 or 7. So then we enter the race at an extreme deficit. So that's why we did sleep on the first night, but we only put in like 30 minutes. We probably should have put in more, especially if we had a sleeping pad. We would have been warm, because we were shivering in the sole blankets on concrete. It was cold. So so next time we would have put in some more. But like Dirk said, I would think of sleep as like a gas tank, and it's like You don't want to wait till you're totally empty before you're like, oh, I need to sleep. You need to be calculating how much sleep do you have going into the race and then during the race, so that you can keep topping it off to make sure that you're in a situation where you can make good decisions. Navigation gets extremely difficult when you're tired, and sometimes it's before the sleep monsters even hit. Just you're making bad decisions, or communication doesn't work well because everybody's on the edge of starting to hallucinate, getting confused. So we will probably do a lot better on that. We're going to come prepared with better gear and more sleep built into the racing, and I think that would have increased our performance this time. So. Okay, that's that. What else we got?
Expectations.
Expectations for the race, I guess. So I guess we all came into this scared to death, thinking it's high altitude, it's going to be cold. This is known to be one of the hardest races in the world. So did it live up to it?
Absolutely. Well, let me just say, it exceeded my expectations in terms of the grandeur and
Yes.
the beauty. The beauty everywhere we went. This amazing.
Seriously.
Yeah, seriously. One of the expectations too, you have to be aware of when you're racing, is the safety standards are not the same in international races. So, yeah, just be aware of that.
So trails are thinner, there's big drop-offs, there's no handrails.
No.
Yeah,
It can be absolutely terrifying at times to go across terrain that in the United States you wouldn't go across, but we survived.
Yes.
Just so steep. I mean, we knew it'd be steep, and it was like just crazy steep. But it met my expectations 100%. It, in the beauty especially, but also in the challenge. I was excited that we met the challenge. I feel like physically we all did quite well despite the elevation. But yeah, everything else, it was definitely
Team
an awesome
dynamics
race.
exceeds expectations.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Environment exceeds our performance exceeds expectations.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're so happy with how things went, seeing that we really didn't finish. You know, we were incomplete, so we weren't ranked, but you know, we just really did well.
We knew that was a possibility.
Yeah.
So the altitude, we did a lot of training going into the race at high altitude. Other than a little bit of a headache here and there, we pretty much didn't have that much of a problem. It just makes everything feel like way more effort. Like just to walk uphill, you're out of breath a lot quicker. We played around with the pulse oximeter just to see where we were on that, and it was kind of neat to kind of watch it. When we first got here, it was a little bit lower. Now that we've been here for almost 3 weeks, it's like it's a little bit higher. So the acclimation does actually help over time. Obviously, the more time you're here, the better to get prepared for it. But obviously, most people can't come a month ahead of time to do a 4-day race. So, but either way, you get as many days as you can before you get here. It's Potamo?
Potamo.
Mm-hmm.
Potamo surprised me. That was one where that was really hard.
Natural rules that we thought were set in stone.
Yeah. So that blew my expectations. So I was thinking the Andes Mountains are like mountains in Virginia or even Colorado. The higher you get, the rockier they get, the harder they get, and the more rugged it gets.
Drier they get.
And the drier they get. Not here. Well, not here in where the race was. The Andes Mountains have swamps from the very top all the way down the sides in this thing called Potamo. And it's like a big wet sponge everywhere.
I think the translation of Potamo is Swamp Mountain.
Swamp Mountain, yes. So that also threw me off as a navigator.
So weird.
I totally look at swamps on a map, you know, when it shows it, and I think that's the low spot, and then I look at white or something that's clear, and I think that that's the high spot, and it's almost backwards here because these mountains, even though they're high, have swamps on top, and those swamps are on the map. So that threw me off on the night one. I was trying to figure out, like, why are we going uphill and there's a swamp? It doesn't make any sense. So, so if you ever do this race, be prepared for just wet muck if you're in that high altitude area in the mountains. And that was cold. It was raining. It was fog. So you had very limited visibility, and everywhere you go is muck.
A couple of places even had, like, you know, you'd be stepping on top of the foliage and not sinking through, but the whole ground would like undulate like you were on a waterbed or something. It was really wild.
Yeah, I think navigation wise too, a 1 to 50,000 scale map, if you're not used to it, distances are a lot longer.
Yes.
But even worse than that is the 40-meter elevation lines. That is a lot of elevation between lines.
Yes.
And the other thing that happens with distances, when the elevation's so steep, what looks like 3K on the map could really be 5K because of the triangulation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, because the 3K is across the map,
Exactly.
but if it's downhill or uphill, it could easily be 5K.
Yeah, even more than 5K.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything took longer. Like we would measure something and say, oh, it's just it's 1K down the trail, no big deal, and then 45 minutes later you're still trekking. You're like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So everything is harder, everything's farther, everything takes more time.
That was surprising.
But the maps were good. I mean, many of the trails were on the maps. I mean, 150,000, the little squiggles in the trails aren't going to show up, especially if you're on an incline. But overall, the topo was good. The maps were well marked. Yeah, there was some stuff that was out there that wasn't on the maps and vice versa, but you expect that in all adventure races. But they did a really good job giving us a good map. Everything was on waterproof paper, so we didn't have any problem with that.
There was a disappointment. We didn't get to do the ropes section. So our expectation was that was going to be one of the highlights.
Right.
And someone was injured just before we got there, pretty much. So we weren't able to do that, and they sent us around that section of the race. So that was a little disappointing.
Right.
But, I mean, what do you do? It's not like it felt better than if we hadn't gotten there due to taking too much time.
Yep.
So at least it wasn't on us that we weren't able to do it, but it was still a little bit disappointing.
Right. The other thing, first, we expected to go through this race and not have any contact with civilization, which is common in some of these races. They want to keep you out in the middle of the nowhere. On this race, and they told us this, I think, in the race brief, that like the first 2 days was very, very remote. You're never going to pass a store or anything like that. But the later you get in the race, the more you're going through little towns and villages. So we were able to pick up, whatever you want, Cokes or chips or sardines or things, things from like convenience stores. They have these like little tiny mom and pop convenience stores. So it was kind of nice to be able to get some of that food, which was probably why we ended up with so much food left over.
Yeah, partly why.
We could source food along the route. I guess the other big expectation on the race, I did not expect to be racing with another team. And, I think it was on day 2, we paired up with Green Pack Haiku, which is our friend Luis Fernando Bekdash, which is the one that got us involved in this race to begin with. And so we went with his team, and that's always one of those dynamics. You never know how it's going to work out, but I think all of us were pleasantly surprised. We really enjoyed being with their team. They were a really good match for us. All of us have very similar physical capabilities, so no one was in the pain cage.
Same goals for the race. That's even more important, that we were there to push ourselves and enjoy it. That was really great.
Totally.
It helped having Spanish speaking.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my gosh, I did not expect so few people to speak English. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but not many people speak English here. So that was very helpful that the other team had, of course, speak Spanish, and a few times it was helpful that they could speak to some of the locals for a little bit more intel.
Absolutely. Anything we're missing? I guess let's talk about the race director and their organization. We checked in on the 14th. Everything was extremely organized. Like, you went to different stations, you checked all your gear, you filled out your paperwork. Everybody was super nice and welcoming. They had somebody with us that could speak English the whole time. Anything else about that that day?
It was really nice. We were kind of treated a little bit like royalty. Like I'm sure there were other teams being interviewed too, but the local TV station and I don't know, just different people interviewing us. That was kind of neat. Mm-hmm. But the race organization couldn't have been nicer. I mean, they helped us out immensely, I think, to understand what was going on.
And then the main race check-in, which was I think the day prior to the race, even that was super organized. They had little stations that you go check in at. Lots of swag and photos and all that kind of stuff. And like Andrea said, we did a couple interviews, which was a lot of fun.
Anyway, this was not their fault, but we were in a tour bus going to the start, and the tour bus could not make one of the turns. So before the race even started, we had to trek. We were told it was 2 kilometers, but I think it was a little bit more than that. But that was kind of like, oh man, we had to trek to the start. So it was off to an interesting start, let's say. Again,
that was
not
another
their
thing
fault,
that was different than my expectations is, I mean, it's raining, actively raining. We're huddled, you know, getting ready to the start, and they hand out the maps like literally 20 minutes prior to the race start in the rain. And so we had very little time to really, literally I did no map markup. Like there was no putting the route on the map, there was no putting the clues on the map. We basically just had to hit the race just from the start with the maps that they gave us. And so
I think with so few checkpoints overall, maybe that was not as critical, having a route planned out. You know, we were basically one at a time. There was no picking and choosing which ones to do. We had to do them in order, and I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, because it was very, very linear race, so it wasn't as much of a problem as it would be if it was like a Rogaine where you could make a lot of different decisions. Now, luckily later in the race, to do the mountain biking sections, I was able to kind of mark the map up with a highlighter, and that way I was able to navigate on the fly a little bit better with the bike. Okay, what are we missing? Talked about the travel. We almost got everything. So I guess in summary, I think all of us agree this was an amazing race. We would love to come do it all over again. I would run this same race over again. I enjoyed it so much, but I really want to come back. Again, we want to finish as a team, crossing that finish line all together. Unfortunately, that didn't happen this time, but hopefully it'll happen the next time we come out here. But it doesn't matter. We still had an amazing experience. You know, the finish thing is kind of like it's icing on top of the cake, but the race itself is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend anybody that has expedition experience to try this race out. This is not a race for your first expedition. This is not, you know, you've done a couple 24 hours and now you want to get into one of the World Series races. Don't pick this one. Get one or two under your belt first and then come do this one, because it is a extremely difficult race. There is suffering involved, and it's gear intensive.
This is Dirk's first ARWS race. What do you think about that advice to do a different race first?
Well, but I've also been racing for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the second AWRS race I've done. The first one was we got stopped after a day and a half of the race.
Yeah.
That's right. The Shenandoah
Tough. Yeah, but this is not a beginner race.
Not a beginner race.
Every bit of your gear has to be bulletproof. There's no margin for error. Yeah, there's some life and death situations out there.
Yes.
That could have turned one way or the other. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Any type of falls, any type of cold. Yeah, there's a lot of, it was dangerous. It's basically, as expedition length racers, you are in charge of your own safety. And that's another thing where sleep comes in, is because the minute you start losing your ability to make good decisions, all of a sudden the safety can falter and bad things can happen. So it's one of them. Get a couple, like for example, Florida C2C is a great 3-day race. It crosses Florida. It's not ARWS. It's a great shakedown race to get your team sorted out before you come try a big international race.
My one last bit of advice is bring 4 AAA batteries.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. If your here at this race, if your spot tracker fails, it's up to you to put more batteries in it. And so we had to fight with the spot tracker for the first day. I guess one other gear thing was the lighting system. I don't know. Andrea and I use the Phoenix lighting system.
All 3 of us use Phoenix.
All 3 of us, yeah. Actually, Brian used Phoenix too, right? Or something.
We have slightly different Phoenix lights.
Yeah.
But they all take the 18650 batteries.
Right.
And no issues there at all. Those lights are just fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, I think all of us brought like piles of batteries, thinking we got 12 hours of night every single night, and you got a hand torch and a headlamp. I changed my batteries on the last night before the finish, only because it was raining and we were in a shelter, and I decided instead of changing the batteries out in the rain, I'm just going to go ahead and flip them out in the shelter. But both lights were working fine. So I think I could have made it through the whole race with just one battery in each light.
I had to change out.
You had to change one?
The Trek changed one. Yeah.
Change one.
I did too, just one time.
One time battery change.
Basically 1.5 batteries for
But I've been in races where we've run out of batteries. That is, you don't want that.
You don't want that happening.
Yeah.
No. And we were using the high capacity batteries, right? I think all of us.
After that one incident where we have run out of batteries, I've switched everything to the Phoenix batteries.
Yeah. Okay, so the lighting system was very critical. Sorry about the ducks or the geese. So the lighting system's critical on these type of races. Just make sure you've got good gear, it's high quality, and it's well tested, because you do not want to be out in the Andes Mountains with no lights. All right, I think that's it, right?
I can go shower.
We can go shower and shave now. We're leaving and getting on the airplane tonight. Also, we got to give a big shout out to Choice Insurance Agency. They gave us a ton of support during this race, and so we really appreciate the team there. They were rooting for us, and we look forward to coming back to the Choice office and doing an exit interview with them as well, and let them ask all the questions, because they were super interested in how we did and what our experience was like. So, all right, thanks for watching.